Why do you say no alcohol?
Dr. Danny Lehman, who does brain scan. What he found out is that there are holes in the brain for people who drink alcohol.
Alcohol causes damage in the brain.
3 foods to improve sexual performance.
Green peas, pistachios, hibiscus. So I remember when a Netflix documentary got released many years ago, said that the men got more erections. So all my male athletes wanted to go vegan.
मैं तो सभी से कहूँगा कि आप vegan diet follow करें.
That's where you win the anti-aging game. People come into the nutrition room and say, मेरे को Amir Khan बना लो, Virat Kohli बना लो.
Being vegetarian now, honestly, I felt like, why didn't I do it before?
I had this one client who avoided meat for 90 days. You know what was her first input to me? Ryan, I have the most brilliant party happening.
Why is the modern refined meat so dangerous?
Molecules like gluten can affect the grey matter in the brain and cause plaque formations on top of the brain, which lead to degeneration in the brain. No, but I need my bread, I need my Mari biscuit. Nothing doing. They're going to stop.
Name the 3 celebrities who have given up gluten completely from their diet.
Shahid, Abhishek, and Virat have given up, but the most famous would be.
Ryan Fernando is an award-winning celebrity sports nutritionist who has trained world's best cricket batsman Virat Kohli, Olympic wrestler Sushil Kumar, and has been the man behind Amir Khan's Dangal fat loss transformation.
You know, the protein industry today is a throbbing industry, about, I think, $25 billion.
A 16-year-old boy allegedly fell ill after drinking a protein shake.
There are studies which are showing that excessive protein can cause cancer.
Should an Aam Aadmi self-prescribe a protein supplement? No.
The celebrated author and founder of Qua Nutrition Clinics uses biohacking techniques to reverse the biological age of his clients.
And in the last 30 to 50 years, we're seeing girls reach puberty between 8 and 10. Could dairy be the culprit? It is documented that dairy animals are fed high amounts of antibiotic or more milk production. Now, is this milk really helping us? Men above the age of 40 ask them not to drink milk. Then I'm like, I don't want you to be having milk in your tea and coffee.
And we've seen a lot of celebrities lately falling prey to heart attacks.
Puneet Rajkumar, he was my client many years ago. I would subscribe to him as being one of the fittest individuals I know. Was he unhealthy? No. So, what could be the reason? The COVID virus and the COVID vaccination have raised. When you sit cross-legged and you eat your food, very few people know this, when you bend forward and eat, you change the direction by which food enters your digestive system, reducing incidences of acidity. And by the way, you got to teach me how to sit like that.
Mr. Ryan Fernando, I'm so glad to be doing this. Thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be doing this with you.
I was watching your videos on YouTube, and I think you were doing a session somewhere, and you echoed my thought, which was along the lines of, आप एक दूसरा घर ले सकते हो, आप एक दूसरा husband भी ले सकते हो. You can produce more children, but you can't buy another body. I'd like you to share a few thoughts on that.
So after doing this for about 2 decades as a nutrition counselor, you know, people come into the nutrition room and say, diet plan de do. मेरे को Amir Khan बना लो, Virat Kohli बना लो, Anupam Kher बना लो. All of these people who are celebrities, the first mind shift that they have is that their body is a temple. Their body is Bhagwan. Their body is the creator of their destiny. They live as landlords in their body. How many of us live as tenants in our body? We put the wrong foods, we put the wrong air, we put the wrong beliefs, we put the wrong water inside of us. But the moment you have this seismic shift in your thought, that I'm born with this one vessel, it is my most expensive real estate. I cannot change it, but I could upgrade it or I could downgrade it. Downgrade means you're the tenant in your body, upgrade means you're the landlord in your body. And if I can convince people, this first part, that they're the celebrities of their life, they're the landlords in their body, and their body is the most expensive real estate, then Shloka, the rest is an easy journey in changing your beliefs of how you need to live.
I have a rapid fire segment for you very quickly. It's called the Fit Rapid Fire round. So it'll be a bunch of questions. Please give me your answers as much brevity as you can. 3 foods that are good for gut health.
Amla, honey, coconut water if you're not allergic to it.
As per you, please rate the celebrity who, according to you, is in the best of physical health. Anushka Sharma, Deepika Padukone, Shilpa Shetty, PV Sindhu.
This is a tough one. I would definitely start with PV Sindhu, probably the fittest lady. Then I would go with Anushka Sharma. I'd give Deepika Padukone over there. And who was the fourth one?
Shilpa Shetty.
I haven't worked with Shilpa Shetty, but she's an awesome lady in terms of her age and her looks and fitness. I haven't had the privilege of working with her, but she could be the queen of fitness.
Perfect. Males, Milind Soman, John Abraham, Virat Kohli, Akshay Kumar.
Hands down Virat Kohli. He's been my client, a gentleman of a man, to the point, followed everything. I haven't had the privilege of working with the other guys, but if you look at each one of these celebrities you just mentioned, they are practitioners of fitness at their level. I mean, I adore Akshay because he's a black belt in the martial arts. And for the age that he has, muscle is the only age reversal organ. He's the number one guy that I would look at.
Why do you say no alcohol after the age of 40?
One of my gurus is Dr. Danny Lehman, who does brain scans. And what he found out is that there are holes in the brain for people who drink alcohol and do drugs. I want to live till 80 and have the best physical and mental health. At that point, I can't reverse my brain. I permanently damaged it for a few moments of brevity and enjoyment in my 40s. So when I do have an alcohol, it is a very tiny portion just to give company to my friends because they are unaware of the damage the alcohol is doing to them. But I want to be part of their celebration. So sometimes that plant might get my whiskey and I'm drinking green tea in a party. So alcohol, in my opinion, will have a surgeon's warning in a decade from now. Much like when I was young, smoking was everywhere. I'm so happy the government of India has decided to ban smoking in all public places. And they are astute and wise, unlike the West, which hasn't done it.
3 foods to carry for work every day.
Apple, some dry fruit, maybe pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, because it lowers stress. And for people who get constipated, carry 1 or 2 prunes or dates to work because they give you energy and they also soften your stool and give you a better bowel movement so you don't come to work constipated the next day and have a sour face at work.
Name 3 celebrities who have given up gluten from their diet completely.
So the guys that work with me, Shahid, Abhishek and Virat, have given up during my tenure with me on a plan. But the most famous would be, and not my client, would be Djokovic. And he's written a book about how, giving up wheat has changed his entire career. And the proof is in the pudding of not eating wheat. Look at him. The highest number of Grand Slams, and he's almost 40 and he's still planning to play into his 40s. Another person I do know is Leander Pace, but I'm not too sure if he's given up gluten, but I remember once meeting him and he says, yeah, I eat lesser amount of bread. So there is a power to giving up gluten.
Top 3 vegan proteins?
Top 3 vegan proteins, I would go first with green pea protein, brown rice protein, and then soy protein. These are protein supplements. If I were to go with natural foods, I would go first with pistachios, then I would go with green peas, and then I would go with chickpeas.
Please name the 3 cities in India which have the most healthiest or balanced diet.
Oh, I won't be welcome into the other cities if I answer this question. But I've got to say that our city of Bangalore gives you both ends of spectrum. The sinful stuff and the saintly stuff. So hands down, this city has some of the best health food restaurants, in my opinion. The second would be Kolkata. They have the most sinful food in terms of their street food, but because the community is so foodie, they're realizing it, and you have a lot of these celebrity rich people opening up restaurants that have healthy foods. And then I have to say Ahmedabad. The Gujaratis really know how to get food to the next level of being healthy.
1 way to burn fat quickly sitting on a desk.
Cinnamon in hot water, black coffee, and fidgeting. The research has shown that the soleus muscle, fidgeting for 6 hours a day, burnt more fat than when you stood. So people who are fidgeters tend to burn a little bit more calories.
3 foods to improve sexual performance.
Green peas, pistachios, hibiscus tea.
What about dark chocolate?
Dark chocolate also.
1 utensil we must all throw away from our kitchens.
Teflon coated and aluminium vessels.
All aluminium vessels.
All aluminium. Aluminium is directly in contact with the food, but if it's aluminium coated with a ceramic coating or a stainless steel coating, then there's no issue. But aluminium in direct contact with food and Teflon that has been scratched should be thrown out.
Who is your role model?
In two parts of life, my role models, in the behavioral part of living life, I love Sadhguru, I love Osho, and a modern day psychologist by the name of Jordan Peterson. Amazing thoughts in terms of philosophy. In terms of nutrition, there are a lot of people that I follow out there. Ben Greenfield is one of the guys that I love to follow. Very few people have heard about him. Dr. Mark Hyman, David Wolf, crazy guy, but I've watched every one of his podcasts. And Barbara O'Neill from Australia has lots of words of wisdom. And in India, from a nutrition perspective, I like my fellow guys, Rujuta, Luke, Pooja Makhija. These guys all bring a real sense of change to the Indian diaspora of how we need to eat more scientifically.
Last question. One impact you'd like to create in the world as a nutritionist?
Oh, we are eating too much. I would like people to eat to their capacity. There's a Latin word called qua, meaning your capacity. So qua nutrition is the name of my clinic, which is eat to your capacity. So I think I'm put on the planet to make people realize that they're bio-individual. They need to figure out how much they should eat. They should understand that if they're eating more, it's a sin of gluttony. And so when you're at the airport next time, Shloka, and they say you're overweight, you should look at your bags and look at yourself and say, who, me or my bags?
The next question is around dairy. And I often get beaten for it because in yoga, we don't promote dairy, at least not in the school of yoga that I follow, except for buttermilk and ghee. Dairy and dairy products is an absolute no-no for a yogi. What is your take on milk and milk products?
I respect yoga. I respect Ayurveda. It's an ancient science. I also respect 2024 science of being able to individually, bio-individually test a person. When I meet a client and they ask me the exact same question that you asked me, the first question I say is, does milk agree with your genetics? Have you tested for it? Does milk agree with your food intolerance blood test? Yes or no? If I get no's for both, as a judge, I prescribe the decision, milk is not good for you. And if it says there is no issue with milk in your genetics or in your blood test, I prescribe milk. My logic is, in today's world, I go for a better version of milk, which is the fermented milk, yogurt or cheese. If you are pro milk as per your genetics or blood test. So at the end of the day, I look at the medical condition, I look at the gender, I look at the age of a person. And if I am prescribing milk, I have one criteria that's very important. It's organic. Most of our farming practices today are driven by the animals being fed wrongly. So antibiotics, anti-parasites given to these animals, and the byproduct of these animals will contain trace amounts of that, which can come into the circulatory system of the human body. For example, antibiotic resistance. It is documented that dairy animals are fed high amounts of antibiotics.
And even testosterone, right?
And they're fed various other hormonals, including oxytocin for more milk production. Now, people will argue with me that the hormones are broken down in the acid of the stomach and all of that stuff. But logically, I ask this question, our grandmothers hit puberty at 14, 15, 16. So cows 100 years ago weren't injected to produce more milk. And in the last 30 to 50 years, we're seeing girls reach puberty between 8 and 10.
Yes.
What's the reason? Is it microplastics? Is it the water? Is it the food chain? And in the food chain, could dairy be the culprit? So I'm a huge proponent of buy your own cow, own your own cow if you're going to have milk. Now, if you can't do that, look at organic. And if you do the testing, like my son and me both can't have milk, so we shift to alternatives, which is water.
What about the vegan forms of milk, nut milks?
I think there are more marketing activities.
Okay.
So I'd rather eat an almond than drink an almond milk.
Okay.
But you know what? I love my coffee white because I was brought up that way. So I either do a coconut milk or an almond milk. I don't do an oat milk because I am allergic to oats. Okay. Because I got myself tested. But oat milk is also good. We can do a soy milk. So people say, oh, but soy is GMO. So I do non-GMO based soy milk. A person who's above 50 years of age who has cholesterol problems, soy milk actually lowers cholesterol. So I cannot assassinate any food. At the same time, I hold a gun to a food, asking it to prove its worthiness to be in my client's body. So I remember when a Netflix documentary got released many years ago called Game Changers.
Yeah.
And I have like hundreds of athletes, and they saw that documentary, and all the male athletes knew that that documentary said that the men got more erections. So all my male athletes wanted to go vegan, which means that to eliminate milk. So we did eliminate milk. And we all saw resting heart rate drop. We all saw that inflammatory markers dropped. We did see drop in vitamin B12 and vitamin D also. So it's not that I'm promoting veganism, but I'm also saying that they had better outcomes of inflammatory, but we also saw drop in muscle mass. Because dairy in the form of casein protein or whey protein or eating curd or having milk as a smoothie was able to promote a higher protein content in the diet, thus thereby maintaining muscle mass. For example, men above the age of 40, ask them not to drink milk because there are research papers talking about casein affecting prostate. So I look at the prostate antigen as a cancer marker in the blood. And if the prostate antigen is higher, PSA test is higher, then I'm like, I don't want you to be having milk in your tea and coffee. No, but all my life, I don't want you to have it. So I take a judgment call decision in protecting my client long term. Now the food industry may not like this. I am for milk and I'm also not for milk. You please understand, the number of cattle hasn't increased over the years, but the quantity of production of milk from the dairy industry has increased. Therefore, yield has increased. How do we do that? Scientifically, yes. Is it compatible for the human race? Did you know that milk in the ancient time was not pasteurized and had the right bacteria in it and the wrong bacteria which caused aggressive disease, which is why they pasteurized milk? But in today's world, we are getting milk which is sterile, right? Pasteurized at 180 degrees flash point and it's stored in Tetra packs. Now, is this milk really helping us? I'm not too sure. So as a nutritionist, as a judge, I'm always sitting on the line saying that I don't believe any food is bad, but I also don't give it a crown of glory, case-to-case basis.
My next question is regarding the protein. You know, the protein industry today is a thriving industry, about, I think, $25 billion. Protein shakes, protein bars, proteins in different forms has almost become a culture. My father's a golfer, for instance. So he's begun doing this. He's 66, 67. So he's waking up in the morning now, and he does the yoga, but he's waking up in the morning, taking his shake, and then going and playing golf. Is this dangerous? The kind of, you know, hum kehte hain na hawa bana diya hai. Is this what it is? Is so much protein even needed? Because I know that there are studies which are showing that excessive protein can cause cancer.
I always behave like a judge to this factor. And I'll be a prosecutor and I'll be a defendant for protein. First point, I agree with you that there is a lot of hype around protein. Why? Because the dairy industry has excess of protein being made, whey and casein. So in any industry, when there is surplus production, you will market the requirement of that product as a need by society. And so you tell people that they're protein deficient. The first question is, people first need to know how much protein they require. Your father, who you mentioned, is a golfer. He's 66 years of age. I'm assuming he's between a 70 to 80 kg man, right? He requires 1.1, 1.2 grams per kg body weight. Is he vegetarian?
Has non-veg occasion.
Has non-veg. When he plans his diet, he needs 80 grams of protein a day. If you eat 3 or 4 meals in a day, you will aram se meet that requirement. However, he plays golf, right? Now let's put him as a sports nutrition athlete. The requirement of protein pre-golf is unfounded. Your father is better off training in a fasted state because he'll burn more fat. And as soon as he finishes his golf, he then takes a good meal which contains 20 to 30 grams of protein naturally in it. Now, nutritional supplements are a nutritional convenience for the human's race, nutritional indiscipline. I'll repeat that. Nutritional supplements are a nutritional convenience for the human race's nutritional indiscipline. I don't take a protein supplement, but I did work for supplement companies. I worked for the companies that sold the highest amount of protein supplements in India. But the fact of the matter is, I don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, even though I have right now in my clinic 20 kgs of protein lying in the clinic, because everybody, bhai sahab, aap to India ka celebrity nutrition hai, hamara protein test karo. So I got free protein available. So I should just douse myself with protein and then I should get muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But genetically, I'm not designed to put on muscle. So people need to understand taking more protein from a perspective of I need more protein is unfounded. Now, if you take more protein, as an athlete, I require to repair. So there is a fine lever. You know, when you drive a car uphill, there's a brake and accelerator. To give protein is pressing the accelerator. To not give a protein supplement is pressing the brake. So when you drive uphill as an athlete, there is a play on how you will prescribe it. So I am not anti-protein supplement, but I'm also against protein supplement. So to your father, I would give an organic protein supplement. I would do his food intolerance report and check what is he intolerant. If he's intolerant to milk and he's taking away protein, he's going to increase his prostate, he's going to increase cancer. You said cancer. When we feed excess molecules of sugar or protein, not completely scientific conclusion, but there are papers that talk about the cancer cell being able to feed off higher amounts of carbohydrate and protein. So could the protein supplement push you in the direction of cancer? Logically, yes. Scientifically, I don't know. So my thought process is err on the side of caution. First, design the dietary requirements of protein. Normal dal, chawal, roti, ghar ka khana. Bring the protein source. Have a couple of baked beans. So today, I had 2 eggs in the morning, and a whole bowl of broccoli, and 1 cup of baked beans. I got my 20 grams of protein. Why do I not take a protein supplement? Because I'm nutritionally disciplined. When will I take a protein supplement? When I'm running after this photo shoot to get to the gym and I have no time to pack a meal post-workout, because the window of recovery post-workout is a 1 hour window of recovery to regrow the muscle. It's actually 180 minutes, but a protein supplement is in your bloodstream in 45 minutes. So there is a benefit of taking a protein supplement post your training, especially resistance training. But things like yoga, golf, walking don't need a protein supplement because you're not breaking down muscle.
But if you're, let's say, maybe a cricketer or a swimmer or a marathon runner.
At the professional level, where you do more than 3 hours of workout per day, you definitely will not be able to meet your protein requirements via diet because your stomach size is small and how many meals can you eat in a day. I do have athletes who require 6,000 calories a day. They don't need a protein supplement. Just trying to achieve 6,000 calories per day, you reach 200 grams of protein a day in the diet. But it's the athlete who has a weight restriction, boxers, wrestlers, people who are into weight managed sports. They can't eat too much of calories. So then we need a protein supplement because you're stripping out the carbohydrate and fat from the natural food and giving only a protein supplement, which is why, Shloka, in lifestyle management of weight loss in celebrity, we tend to do a higher protein diet, lower carbohydrate to burn the fat out of the body. And hence, a sports nutritionist love to prescribe a protein supplement. Is it for everybody? No. Should an Aam Aadmi self-prescribe a protein supplement? No. Should a doctor give a protein supplement to you? Yes. Should a dietitian give you a protein supplement? Yes. Should you self-prescribe? Unless you're well versed in your calorie requirements, your breakdown based on your workout load, then you maybe be able to self-prescribe. Is there harm in self-prescription of protein for a week, 10 days, 15 days? Not really. But if you have not checked your liver and kidney enzyme in a blood test, if you have not checked your blood urea nitrogen, your serum creatinine levels and your EGFR, and you take a protein supplement over an extended period of months, years or decades, cause harm to your body. Maybe cancer, maybe liver function, maybe kidney function, maybe inflammation function because you're eating the wrong foods. Like for example, I'm allergic to green peas and all the plant-based proteins are green pea proteins. So the moment I take a green pea protein, I want to gain muscle, but I can't take it. So only brown rice protein works for me. But when I take brown rice protein, my stomach doesn't like it. So this concept of supplements or protein powders for nutritional convenience, take it when the metabolic load is there. Take it when you cannot be nutritionally disciplined.
I often wonder, how did the martial artists of the yesteryears, the Buddhist monks or the culinary experts, these are sciences and the martial art forms that have been continuing since time immemorial, jahan par there was no protein supplement. But they were in great shape and they had superhuman strength. How did they manage to do it? Just on the basis of their diet, right?
If you go back, it is the discipline of the practice of doing a sport that gets you to the next level. I've been practicing martial arts for over 2 decades. Why do I pursue martial arts? It's the one physical activity that rewards you with a belt system. So I'm guided by going from first standard to second standard. So I go from brown belt to black belt. What is my thought process with martial art people is the psychology of discipline now arrives into the psychology of life, which is I'm a huge proponent of martial arts. Because unlike most sports, which you do recreationally, there's no psychological discipline to becoming a champion. So things like martial arts and even yoga work at the psychological level of discipline, which now trickles into your food choices.
I see.
And thereby, when trickling into your food choices, you're obviously taught to eat spiritually and more correctly. And hence, as a nutritionist, I find it less of an effort to convince that sort of mindset. Why were they stronger? Because they trained better, they ate cleaner, they ate more spiritually. And please understand, the power of winning medals does not come from muscle, comes from the mind. A Virat Kohli is no bigger than a Rohit Sharma. But a Rohit Sharma hits more sixes than a Virat Kohli. And if you look at the statistics, Virat Kohli has got more runs than Mr. Rohit Sharma. So Mr. Rohit Sharma decides to run lesser and hit longer, but Mr. Virat Kohli decides to run longer. You don't need big muscles or more weight to excel in a sport. You need a mental grit or a mental discipline. And I think this gets missing in diet or nutrition because when an athlete works really hard, when a recreational athlete really plays and wins, they say, "Arey bhai, Ryan chodo na, diet to side mein ja, mere ko jo bhi chahiye, mere ko khane ka hai." So they use food as the reward of I worked really hard and I should eat whatever my body desires because I can put garbage into my body. But a martial artist will be like, my body is a temple. A yoga practitioner, a sannyasi will say it is my temple. Such people will eat with spiritual and psychological discipline. And hence, hands down, if I find an athlete with the mental grit, they don't follow a diet plan. They're on a nutrition plan. And anybody without mental grit, I have to tell them you need to follow a diet plan.
You've quoted this, muscle is the only age-reversible organ. What does that mean?
I always tell my mother, "Mama, please weight train. Muscle is the only age-reversible organ." You see, Shloka, I remember reading this study a long time ago in America, and they took these 2 old age homes and they put Ludo, Bingo, all this housey type games in the basement, and they made these age-old home people work out. And then another one, they put a gym, and all these people grumbled and everything. "Oh, you're 70 plus years old, you want us to work out, we're in retirement age." But they said, "No, you have to work out. You have to do leg extension on the quadricep muscle." 6 months later, they came back and took a biopsy of both the muscles of these 2 groups of people. You know what they found out? The group that did resistance training, the muscle regressed in age.
The group that did the muscle training.
So muscle and liver are 2 organs in the human body that do not know that they're growing old if you train it. The muscle is young. Stimulate it with more than your body weight, which is resistance training, weight training, and watch your muscle become younger by a decade. So in my longevity practice, when I work with billionaires and millionaires and celebrities, I am looking at tracking their muscle. So Shloka, when I meet you a decade later for another podcast, I will ask you what muscle you had in 2024. And when I meet you in 2034, you should have at least a kg of muscle more than today. Because that's where you win the anti-aging game. And most people do not weight train. Most people do walking, do yoga, do other forms of activity where the muscle is not being given a wake-up call. You see, when you resistance train, when you put more than a specific load to the muscle, you cause microscopic trauma at the muscle level, which causes it to release growth hormone. And in that growth hormone, you become younger at the muscle level. Look at all your ex-athletes who still train today. Your father is from the military. I'm sure he got up every morning and did PT. Am I correct? He still gets up in the morning and goes and does exercise. which means he's 66 years of age, but probably inside of his body, he's 40 years of age. So when he reaches 80 years of age, he still believes he's 60 years of age. And hence, muscle is the only age-reversible organ.
You've advised several sports stars, I think Sania Nehwal, PV Sindhu, Virat Kohli, among others. What advice would you have for an individual who's intensely physically active? Maybe a marathon runner, maybe a gym goer, fitness enthusiast. What should their diet look like?
So Shloka, the first thing to what I call as the recreational athlete. There are two types of athletes. There's a professional athlete. All of them come to me because it's part of their career. And they realize that nutrition can play a substantial role to what we call as cellular turnover. And like, for example, your stomach cells turn over every 9 days, intestines every 10 days. So if you're not eating correctly, your body's not going to absorb correctly. And if it doesn't absorb correctly, you don't have the necessary energy from the macros or the micronutrition from the minerals that are going into your body. So when we go to recreational athletes, there's physiology and psychology. The physiology has the same demand as an elite professional athlete. But the psychology of this recreational athlete is, I can get away with murder when it comes to... So I will do a marathon run, and then after that I'll drink beer and eat all the masala dosa or batata vada or biryani, which may not be the most nutritionally balanced food for recovery. And in that continuous recovery, so if I'm a marathon runner or I'm a recreational athlete, I train, let's say, 150 days to 200 days in a year. But look, you train once a day. You shower once or twice a day. You sleep once a day. But you will eat 4 or 5 times a day as a recreational or elite athlete. So the first advice I say to a professional athlete or a recreational athlete is try and not train for 5 days, you'll still be able to run. Try and not eat for 5 meals and let's see if you can run. My logic being, the sanctity of food going into your body needs to have the discipline of science in terms of what does my body need? Body. Then after the health of the body is first taken care of, what does my body need to enhance performance? Exercise and run. So what are those elements? And in that, I have a bifurcation in my thought process, which is, genetically, am I on the back foot? Let me give you an example. I have a low magnesium absorption gene. I do martial arts, I do weight training, and I do yoga. 7 days a week I work out. No break, but 1 hour of workout every day. By the 7th day, if I do not take a magnesium supplement, my calf muscles will cramp. Now, how do I know this? I've done the gene testing to tell me that I have a magnesium deficient gene inherited from my father. And therefore, I need to take additional amount of magnesium in my diet, which is pumpkin seeds, dark chocolate, and or a magnesium citrate or bisglycinate supplement. This knowledge is lacking in recreational athletes. They wing it. For example, when I test myself, I came to know that I have a magnesium deficient gene. So I train all 7 days of the week, karate, yoga, gymming. And 1 hour of training as a recreational athlete. But if I go 7 to 10 days without supplementing with the magnesium, either via pumpkin seeds or chocolate, dark chocolate, or maybe a magnesium citrate or bisglycinate, I will cramp in my calf muscles. So it's taking this knowledge of what we do with elite athletes, finding out their health, then finding out their genetic requirements, and then finding out their nutritional requirement for that physical activity. Meaning, how much of calorie load? Do I give more? Do I give less of carbohydrate? Do I give more? Do I give less of protein? Do I give more or do I give less of fat? So from that perspective, I think that's where I construct, even for recreational athletes.
So any food groups, any foods that you would in particular suggest individuals, or no? It's customized to every individual?
I've been very successful in winning Olympic medals because of the bio-individuality approach.
Okay.
As a trained sports nutritionist, what I do not want to do is one size fits all. You know, thousands of athletes come to me and say, Doctor Saab, mere ko diet plan de do. Jo Sushil Kumar ka diet plan hai, mere ko bhi de do. What they do not understand is sports performance, sports nutrition is at a very basic level. But if I were to answer your question at a very generic level, your first requirement is how many calories do you expend in training? So you're a yoga practitioner.
I was also an athlete.
You were also an athlete.
I was a India rank 2 in swimming
Wow.
protein?
Swimming is massive. So if you are going to do swimming, I have to look at what is your resting metabolism and then the activity factor. Now, swimming is something like 2,000 calories a day, and maybe your resting metabolism is, let's say, about 1,400 calories a day. So you need 3,400 calories a day. So once I arrive at that figure, professional or recreational, whatever age you are, I then come to a conclusion, I need to feed this human being 3,000 calories or 2,000 calories. What do I decide? Protein, carbs, fats. My primary driver of energy, depending on the sport or the practice, irrespective of the gender, irrespective of the age, is carbohydrate first. Complex or simple. Complex during the day, simple pre-workout, simple post-workout to replenish glycogen. Then comes protein. The standard rule of thumb, 1.5 to 1.8 grams per kg body weight in both recreational as well as elite athletes, because you will be breaking down muscle catabolism. So you need to have anabolic nutrition. Higher protein level, 1.5 to 1.8 grams per kg body weight, split into multiple meals, not only one meal, is my second thumb rule. Third thumb rule is giving protein post-workout, 10 to 15 grams of protein, because you want the muscle to recover. But I give it with 5 times the ratio of carbohydrate, meaning if Shloka, I give you 15 grams of protein post-workout, I would give you 15 into 5 times of carbohydrate. So my blend of food would be 1:5 carbohydrate, protein is to carbohydrate solution. And then the final part is fat. Fat needs to be the good fats, the essential fats. So chiefly your omega-3 fatty acids, found in flaxseed, found in chia seeds, found in walnuts, pistachios, nuts. Our vegetable oils, highly inflammatory, omega-6s and all. So I tend to kind of downgrade that and get more of the essential fats from your nuts and seeds. And that would be my perspective on the protein, carbs and fats in the diet. And then I come to the vitamins and minerals. I do a blood test to check vitamin deficiency. I do a genetic test to see factory level blueprint. What do I mean by factory level blueprint? You know, when you're born, your mother and father inherit you with a gene set. The factory blueprints will say, will you absorb vitamin B6, B9, B12 in different levels? So if you have a vitamin, say B9, folic acid low, then I've got to find foods that have a higher folate content. And then make sure I write that as a nutritional prescription first from the overall foods. Now, people don't understand this. Whilst I prescribe natural food, I ask this question, is the food having the right amount of folic acid or folate in it naturally?
For everyone or just for sports people?
Actually, it's for everyone. You see, sports performance in cars, the ABS system in our cars today for brakes was developed in Formula 1. Sports nutrition today developed for elite athlete performance trickles down into medical nutrition for a person. So if I know somebody has an MTHFR deficient gene, we discover it in athletics first to enhance performance. But enhancement of performance in the normal human race is better health. So I believe genuinely that the tenets of sports, when you practice, enhances your body, but you should eat like a sports nutritionist advising you, and that brings about longevity and better health in normal athlete. So if you put all of this together, most people taking up recreational sport are winging their diet.
Is that okay or not okay?
It's not okay.
I'm only doing it recreationally. I just need to go to gym 3 times.
You're buying the most expensive gym membership. You're hiring the trainer. You're wearing the most expensive gloves and shoes. You're using this very exotic equipment. You're using science behind the range of motion and biomechanics and exercise physiology. लेकिन दाल चावल रोटी में तो दादी माँ जो बनाता है ना वो ही खाएगा. So obviously as a sports nutritionist I'm shouting from the rooftop, भाई तुम गलती कर रहे. अरे normal चप्पल पहन लो, normal सादा वाला कपड़ा पहन लो, take dumbbells, take 2 Bisleri water bottles and use them. Why do you need those nice exotic kettlebells and everything? My point is, if you're doing sada, do everything sada. But if you're going high tech, nutrition needs to get to a scientific level.
Is that maybe one of the reasons why we see a lot of these gym goers, and we've seen a lot of celebrities lately conking off for good or falling prey to heart attacks? They're in great levels of physical fitness, but something or the other happens to them and you're wondering, अरे ये तो बहुत fit था या fit थी, heart attack कैसे हो गया? Do you think there's some problem with people who are into recreational sports or fitness but don't take their diet very seriously?
Absolutely. Actually, मेरा एक client था, Puneet Rajkumar, very famous
Okay, he's your client.
actor. He was my client many years ago. I would subscribe to him as being one of the fittest individuals I know. Gymnastics, workout. He would push himself to the next level. Was he unhealthy? No. Did he have an underlying heart condition? No. So what could be the reason? So now when I sit down as a nutritionist, we have to understand that post-COVID, the COVID virus and the COVID vaccination have raised inflammatory markers or the spike protein in the human body. And this, unfortunately, cannot be monitored in real-time level. And people go through their normal stresses in life. Stress of not eating the right food, stress of eating the wrong food, stress of schedules, stress of workouts. And the workout of stress, I'm not saying in a negative term. It's like you need to push the body to get a certain physiological change. But could it be because we don't have real-time monitoring of inflammation in the blood and the spike protein and the heart, that there were chances of inflammatory markers leading to heart conditions, myocardial infarction, stroke? And so the medical community is divided on what could be the outcome. People postulate it's the vaccination. People postulate, like me, we're eating out more often. Very few people know this, but palm oil. I do omega-3 pinprick test in my clinic. Do you know the ratio for omega-6 to omega-3 should be 3:1?
Okay.
My level when I tested was 31:1. My son's level was 131:1, which means my omega inflammatory markers were really high. And when I looked at my arachidonic acid, which is an inflammatory marker because of palmitic acid, was through the roof. Why? Because I eat outside food. Now, hang on. Did you know that during the pandemic, the farmers were not able to produce enough of oil? Natural groundnut, gingerly oil, coconut oil, all our staple oils. So what did we do? We needed oil to help the poor people so the oil level wouldn't rise. So we imported which oil? Palm oil, highest in palmitic acid, affecting the heart rate. Now what you and I are doing, we click on an e-commerce app, we order our food instantaneously. That's affecting people. Go back a decade and ask any individual how much they ate outside. It was once a week. Go back to our parents once a month. Go back to our grandparents once in 6 months. Kisi ka shaadi ke liye bahar kha raha hai. Today, last week, I ate out 4 times. How many times did you eat out, SHLLOKA? Once. So you're a health coach, so you understand that. But that exposure to that food with palm oil, inflammatory marker, these underlying conditions nobody's tracking.
So palm oil is something that these guys use, people who are feeding us from the outside.
Because it's a very neutral oil. See, a South Indian will not eat gingerly oil. A North Indian will not eat coconut oil or mustard oil. So you've got to figure out that when you create food in today's dynamic India, multifaceted cultural India, we live in Bangalore right now. So many cultures, so many religions, so many races over here. I eat your food, you eat my food. But I'm a little finicky about having coconut oil in the food. I'm a little finicky about having gingerly oil. Palm oil is neutral in flavor. So it's the preferred choice. It's also the cheapest oil.
Does this hold true for all refined oils?
It does hold true for all refined oil, because if I become a Puritan, then I say, evolution never gave us oil in a bottle.
Correct.
We ate it off the nuts and seeds.
Sure.
Pakane wala cheese, matlab tel, tadka. This is modern day cooking. Flavor, gastronomy explosion. Maybe our heart is not agreeing with it. Arteries are not agreeing with it. And maybe we're just eating too much, which is what I said earlier. The human race is eating too much. We do not know what we're putting into our body, how much we're putting into our body, and how frequently we're putting it into our body. So I think this results in these heart problems. This results in the inflammatory markers. This results in the stresses. And I think that's why people are conking.
So 2-3 things that we can do. Number one is try reducing our consumption of outside food. That is, try to cook food as much as we can. And second, use oils which are non-refined, right? Which would
use more cold pressed oils. Try and not use oils. Try and use steaming, roasting, braising of your food. And
or maybe try using ghee.
You could use ghee, provided your genetic test comes back, provided your food intolerance test comes in, or use coconut oil. So there's a huge debate between saturated fats like ghee and coconut oil being good for the heart. And there's one school that says it's good for the heart, and one school says that it's bad for the heart. I genuinely believe the oils are not the problem, but it's the sugars in our food and the stresses in our life that slap the oil or the cholesterol in our body and make it more sticky. Refined sugar, refined carbohydrate in diet, which raised our HbA1c or sugar levels, which went and made our cholesterol more stickier, thereby generation of plaque formation. So I have people who have very high cholesterol, but absolutely no high HbA1c or sugar levels. They have no problems, no plaque formation, arteries are clear. We also live in very fast-paced times. Where are you?
No.
The podcast is supposed to come, my heart is going half, we've got the deadlines. The way the world works today, if I went back 20 years ago, I had a pager. My boss paged me. I'd call him 3 hours later. Now when I call up my team, I'm like, why haven't I answered my call in 30 seconds? Right? That level of stress at which we have deadlines and delivering work, either in yoga and Ayurveda and my nutrition clinic, or you out there when you're in your practice, I just think we're vibrating at such a high level of frequency. Our adrenals are so high, we have forgotten how to relax. So the heart is beating at a higher rate.
And which is why heart disease, I believe, is the leading cause of death in the world today.
It's one of the leading causes of death in the world, and India is the highest carrier of genetic anomalies. So as a population, we tend to have atrial fibrillation, cardiomyopathy, and a few other gene markers that are very high. Like I have the cardiomyopathy gene. So I constantly test my father who's 75 years of age. So then comes your epigenetics, how you eat and how you behave, how you think, how you sleep. If you can change that, I think epigenetics can overcome the back foot given if you have a genetic anomaly.
And I think a lot of research that you have done around is on wheat. And I'd had the privilege of reading one of your books. You said that wheat consumption and removal of wheat from your diet can even add a decade in your life. Why is the modern refined wheat so dangerous?
So if I can take a step back, I always behave like a judge. Now, the reason I wrote very closely about wheat is because when people come to my nutrition clinic, I ask for a genetic testing. But Shloka, what if your genetic receptor, which you've inherited from your successive generations of ancestors, is slightly off or defunct? Then that absorption of B12 may be low. Now, researchers found out that for lactose in milk, for wheat, there are genetic receptors. And in a subsegment of a population, they have found out what is called as DNA base pairs. That is, your genetic code is on or off for certain food molecules. So because I do high-end nutrition counseling, because your body is the most expensive real estate, I don't believe in writing a nutrition prescription based on my experiential wisdom. I write it based on scientific discovery, which is getting into the threshold of your genetics, your microbiome, and your blood test. Now, in this, when doing thousands of patients over 2 decades, it came across that a lot of people were sensitive to gluten. Was wheat grown in India for the last 100 years? So that led me into saying that, Ryan, maybe your thought process is to stand as a judge and ask people, could you get tested for gluten? Who's gluten? Gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. Now we eat out of love and culture. Your dadima, your mother, my mother has taught me how to eat. And I ate bread all my life which contained wheat. And I have very bad acne till the age of 40. And nobody told me as a nutritionist that wheat was attacking my system inside. Wheat was causing inflammation because I ate out of love and culture. So my responsibility to the world is, can I bring science into eating? But for a sizable amount of the Indian population, I wouldn't like to take numbers because the subset data from my clinic is a very privileged part of society. But even in that privileged part of society, if I take 100 people, nearly 45% of those people are gluten sensitive. 45%. That's data of privileged segment of society who can afford coming and doing the DNA testing. So this, I began thinking and I said, you know what? Let me write the book. Why? Because not everyone can afford to come into a nutrition clinic and pay the premium rate for a Ryan Fernando plan. But picking up my book for under 200 rupees may open up a thought process that should I get tested? Or could I eliminate wheat from my diet for a period of 90 days And can I observe for changes in the human body?
Okay, so if I'm gluten sensitive, I must definitely remove wheat from my diet. But what if I'm not gluten sensitive? Then it's okay to consume wheat?
Absolutely. So that's where, I have to be cautious because I wrote the book. So people think I'm anti-wheat. I'm not anti-wheat.
No.
I wrote the book to open up the knowledge to people who think that basically reading the book and they match the clinical symptoms like acne, like eczema, like psoriasis, like aggressive plaque, like children having cavities.
What is this plaque? Because I think you quoted a doctor which said that there's some white plaque in the brain.
So beta amyloid is a plaque that sticks onto your brain. So research is slowly pointing out that people who are B positive blood group or DNA sensitive to the HLA-DQ gene markers, in a segment of analysis of population by, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Daniel Amen, he's one of the world's leading researchers on PET scans, positron scans of the brain, where they map the brain and they show that how alcohol, cocaine, toxic molecules, deficiencies in food and molecules like gluten can affect the gray matter in the brain and cause plaque formations on top of the brain, which lead to degeneration in the brain, which in a long-term basis is not yet clinically proven. But if you go from a logical point of view, I do genuinely believe that if you're gluten sensitive and you eat too much of gluten, then over a period of time, the brain problems that arise as you grow older is a subset of your behavior of the last 3 decades of eating gluten. Therefore, in the pursuit of truth, I use simple logic. Eat a food molecule for 90 days. Check your resting heart rate. Check your poop. Check your skin. Check when you get up in the morning, do you feel stiff or do you feel like $1,000,000? Now remove one molecule by the art of elimination and see for 90 days what happens to your resting heart rate. If it comes down, if your skin improves, if you feel like $1,000,000, if when you stretch you don't feel pain in your joints. These are basic markers which will tell you logic that elimination or enhancement of that food. So enhancement of a good molecule, elimination of a bad molecule is where we would kind of do it. You'll spend 8,000 rupees for ethyl alcohol going into your body, but you'll not spend 600 rupees for the best low deuterium glacial mineral water going into your body. So when people ask me, does Virat Kohli drink very expensive water? 60% of everyone's body is made up of water, right? So if you have to perform at the highest level and become one of the best in the world, then this is a no-brainer. Change your water. If there's a molecule that's going to give a thappad to you, you're going to do a kujli to you, why not discover whether that is a thumbs up for you or a thumbs down for you? We spend about $1,000 to $2,000 on luxury phones, but you're not willing to spend 2,000 rupees on a blood test. So that awareness is what I'm battling with people. That stop eating out of love and culture. Don't say, Hamara dadi maa ne ye khaya. I had a lady who had migraine for nearly 30 years. She came to me and I just told, okay, let's stop gluten for 4 weeks. Now, the functionality of the genetic test, it takes 4 weeks for the results to come. So I take a saliva or blood sample, send it to the lab because not many people do genetic testing. So it takes that much amount of time. And she stopped gluten for the first week and she was, no, but I need my bread, I need my Mari biscuit, I need all of this. I said, nothing doing, you're going to stop it. 7 days later, she called me up and she says, I don't have a headache for the first time in my life. What have you done? So I didn't do anything. I just eliminated a kujli. And she went for 4 weeks without it. Her test came back and she was not gluten sensitive. So she says, I'm going to get back to my Mari biscuit, I'm going to eat my bread, and her headache came back. So you also have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So research has not yet gone through what I say, the end conclusion, but gluten is one molecule that I've begun to understand that could slap you. I'm not here to crucify wheat, barley or rye. I'm only asking people to say that I wanted to take one food that destroyed my life as a teenager, adult acne. I meet teenagers today in a mall, I look at them and I'm like, you've got a gluten sensitivity, just stop wheat for 30 days.
How do you make that out? Just by looking at
Just by looking at skin. So looking at skin, I look at dry skin patches on the leg. I look at people who have ADHD. They're not able to process properly. I look at people with, ask them, how's your potty? I look at people with psoriasis, eczema. I look at people who have, Hashimoto's. Like, people like, I got thyroid at 22. Oh, let's just avoid wheat. But what has wheat got to do with thyroid? I genuinely believe that when inflammation is higher, your immune system is going and slapping your organs. The liver, the pancreas, the kidneys, the thyroid. And then when we start eliminating that, and then looking at the nutritional deficiencies, we improve that, everyone sets back to normal.
Is it safe to say that most people should remove wheat from their diet, even if they are not gluten sensitive?
No, I would not go in that direction, because then the wheat lobby will probably assassinate me. Because, wheat is the cheapest flour and we're the wheat basket. What I say to people is this: do the simple elimination test for 90 days. Think you're going for a pilgrimage. Like a lot of people do the Shravan period or the Navratri period and they don't eat non-veg, right? For 30 to 90 days. Do the same thing with wheat. Avoid it, wheat, barley, rye, avoid it for 90 days. Look if your system gets better. If you don't see any change, don't bother about testing. You see a change, go and do the testing to conclusively scientifically prove that your gene does not have a jodi with wheat. And that's what I want people to discover. I don't want to make this statement saying that wheat is bad. No, I want to say get tested and figure out whether you're a buck of wheat or not.
But what if the wheat is refined? Doesn't it become problematic then? Because all the fiber is
anything that is refined, Shloka, look, nature put food for us on trees or in the ground or on plants, or if you're a non-vegetarian, you chased it and killed it and ate it. But agrarian society began processing grains. Man cannot eat grain directly. It has to be pounded. It has to be, the husk has to be removed and stuff like that. So what I genuinely believe is that refined flours are a creation of the Industrial Revolution for the labor class. I mean no disrespect to labor today. What I mean is labor has changed from the 1800s to 2024, as today labor is desk jockey. We use our fingers, we use our brains. We don't do that much of physical movement. So we don't need these refined grains with massive calorie load, no fiber, very little nutrition in our bodies. So,
but refined wheat is that.
That's the only way you can consume it in bread and chapatis. But manufacturers have become smart and says whole grain, right? By adding the fiber in. Again, I come back to the fact of the matter, which is category 1. Have you tested for wheat? If you are not susceptible to wheat, please eat wheat, but in the form with the fiber. Next point.
So whole wheat.
Whole wheat with the fiber. The next point. Do you really need that much amount of grain in your diet? Is your gut system sensitive to so much of fiber or not? And then if its answer is, I don't have any issues, then your next plan is, as a nutritionist, how many calories do you require? So I come to my next point, which is, Shloka, the human race is eating too much today. When people talk about carbon footprint, start with yourself. You're eating more than you actually require. When your body requires 1,800 calories, why are you taking 2,500 calories a day? Why is that biryani? Why is that beer? Why do you need milk coffee or milk tea when you can drink plain water? If I go down to biological necessity and you eat exactly for that, your blueprint or your carbon footprint on the planet will actually decrease. Food for thought. Spending 2,000 rupees to go to the movie theater to watch a movie, which is 3 hours consumption, but to work with a medical nutritionist for how you should eat scientifically is something people have not yet evolved to. And hence my perspective saying that if you need to change the next generation, start with our children. For example, Shloka, do you know there is not a single Indian school from grade 1 to grade 10 that teaches children about nutrition? My son's CBSE medium had 3 chapters on nutrition. And sorry to say this, it is all faltu and wrong. Because when I was reading and teaching him, I was like, this is wrong, don't study it. Get 0 on 100, but this is wrong. We need to change. We are in 2024. Our school syllabuses have been written in 1975. I could be wrong, they could have been written in 2000. But imagine my son studying Windows 7 when Windows 12 is going to be out. We can't expect government policy because it is a blanket umbrella. It's not a religious movement. It is not a political movement. Nutrition is bio-individual. So the responsibility lies with the parent.
So if we go in order, first get yourself genetically tested.
Ideally, get yourself genetically tested.
So know whether you're gluten sensitive or not. Modify your food choices accordingly. what are some substitutes for individuals who cannot consume wheat?
So the substitutes are amazing. Okay, so when I say that you can't have wheat, barley, and rye, it's just 3 grains. You have rice, you have corn flour, corn, maize, jowar, bajra, amaranth, buckwheat, quinoa, and there are a whole other lot of, including oats. Maybe oats is in the borderline between gluten sensitive and not gluten sensitive. There are a whole lot of grains out there. Like in rice alone, you have brown rice, you have white rice, you have black rice, you have bamboo rice. There are so many things that are out there. SHLLOKA, you're not allowed to have green tea. You never drink green tea, but now you're making whole hangama because I've told you can't do it. But you're not looking at all the other beverages on the planet that you could probably drink, including water. So I think we nutritionists should not make a mountain of a molehill. Wheat could be good, wheat could be bad. But when the testing comes back wrong for your body, there are thousands of other grains. And I go back to this premise. I was born in this part of the world. I have a little bit of Rajasthani gene, 6% Persian gene, the Chamar gene. I've done the ancestral whole profile. And my mother is Goan, my father is Tamilian. It's a limbo soda blend. And I've got Telugu gene, Rajasthan gene, Punjabi gene, Sindhi gene, South Indian gene, Persian gene. Hey, I really do not know what I need to eat from a farming practice point of view. So testing is the next best thing for me to do. Now, I do this because I'm in the profession. I became a nutritionist because I had a very sensitive gut and very bad skin. I could never put on weight. I never knew why I went to the toilet 4 times a day. I've written it in my book, right? And so my sense of discovery is to help other people realize that if you are suffering from digestive problems or autoimmune disorders, could it be your food? Is my thought process to be. So some of us are born with ironclad pressure cooker stomach. We can eat anything on the planet. And God bless those people. God bless. Right? I mean, like I have an uncle who can eat anything and everything and he's 90 years of age. And I'm like so jealous of his gut system. And that could be the correct gene selection. Unka mummy daddy ka jodi bahut acha hai. Jo pandit ne match kiya na. I'm like super. And then here I tell my Goan mother and my Tamilian father, who asked you to get a love marriage together? But sometimes jokes apart, I tell people genetic diversity is good. In fact, SHLLOKA, I'm encouraging people to have genetic diversity. I've already told my son, he'll marry somebody from Brazil or from New Zealand or from the Eskimo North Pole. Why? Because we have been selectively marrying into the same religion, same culture, same caste, same community, same village. So if you have a bad genetics, you compound it over generations. Some of the most ironical communities in India, the Marwadi community, the Banya community, the Jat community, the Rajput community, even the Tamilians deep down south, the Malayalis deep down south, they marry within the same 100-kilometer radius circle, same religion, same. Even the Parsi. And therefore you have the highest amount of genetic anomalies because successive generations of grandmothers, the gene selection pool doesn't diversify. Which is why my son, I've told him, dude, if you have a Brazilian girlfriend, I'm going to be super happy. It's from the other side of the world.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have this podcast with you. And I hope for you to be a part of this sometime in the future as well.
Definitely. I've had so much fun today. And I think my learning from this is that I want to be able to sit like this because research has shown that when you sit cross-legged and you eat your food, very few people know this, when you bend forward and eat, you change the direction by which food enters your digestive system, reducing incidences of acidity. So the dining table is actually not the real thing. And by the way, you got to teach me how to sit like that because I don't have that flexibility.
Sure thing, with pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
Grateful to all of you guys coming in today and to SHLLOKA for shooting this podcast. Much love, much happiness.